We're going to talk about Myles Garrett after a quick reminder that you can tackle all of your NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Jay, you mentioned Myles Garrett in your opening statement. 3 sacks in the first half. Looked every bit of the Defensive Player of the Year, future Hall of Famer, potential GOAT that we have come to expect from Myles. And when you see it, what he does in the first half against Pittsburgh compared to what he didn't do or did do against New Orleans last week, it can leave you wanting a little more. Can any of you guys explain or try to make sense of how sometimes we see this superhuman defensive end of Myles Garrett in the stat sheet and other days it's just not there? Can you explain?
I personally think that that's a non-story and that's way overblown. Name me the defensive. Does Trey Hendrickson have a great game every day? Does Max Crosby have a great game every week? Does JJ's younger brother have a great game every week?
Clearly not.
Of course not.
No, but
nobody does.
The difference, I think it is a story, because the difference between his great games and his not good games is a chasm that's too big for someone of his stature. You can't not record a stat in a 35-14 loss. And then come back and have 3 sacks
He is recording
and a half.
stats. He's just not recording traditional stats.
No, I don't think he had a stat against New Orleans.
No, he had stats, just not traditional stats, Jay. And
what were his stats?
So whatever. His pass rushing grade, his pass rushing grade.
I'll give you.
What makes one stat better than the other? Just because it's new and you don't get it?
I'll take a sack over a pressure any day.
I'll give you 5 reasons just from playing the position. When you're a defensive lineman, they can run the football. They can run opposite of you. You're not ever getting that play. If you run in the football, they can double team you, and then you're still not going to make that play. If they're passing the ball, they can throw 3-step. 3-step, the ball is out in 1 point some odd seconds. You're not getting there. You got to get your hands up. They can double team you, slide the protection your way, put a fullback, a tight end. They can cut you. They can do all those things. Sometimes you could be 2 inches away from a sack. The quarterback just gets the ball off or throws the ball away. You only play in about 60 snaps. When you talk about the level and times in which you're being double teamed or triple teamed, we got to understand this is not Madden. These guys are 340 some odd pounds, and there's 2 of those guys on you. And then you have to not only fight through that, you're getting double teamed, and guess what? If they're going to scramble or move in the pocket, they're not even scrambling or moving the pocket your way. There's 1,000 different ways that you can affect the game. I can make penetration to make the ball bounce, and linebacker makes a tackle. If 3 guys are double teaming me, that means everybody else on the defensive line is getting single blocked. Somebody got to get home. If they blocking me like that, that means there's a tight end not in the passing route. If you want to take your best tight end and block him, and he's not out on the route, that's hurting your offense. Those are all things the way you can affect the game, and that's why when you see him get 90s or people like, how did he do that? Well, you get credit for sometimes it's not in the production.
Yeah, well, and not in the traditional production.
Yes,
and that's the thing. Like, as fans, we pretend it's not the case, but pretty much fans and media judge pass rushers solely on sacks.
Yeah.
Okay? How many plays does Myles Garrett play in a season, Mike? Or any great pass rusher?
In a season? Let me take a snap count from last year.
Yeah. 600?
I'd say 750.
You know, so if he plays 700 plays, doesn't even matter.
Last year, Myles Garrett
he missed a couple of games, right? 1 game, 2 games.
How many games did Myles Garrett miss?
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
He played 815 snaps.
All right, 815 snaps. The most sacks in the history of the game is what, 20?
22.
22,
yeah.
What percentage of 800 snaps? That's all we're judging these players by in most cases, is maybe 2% of their plays. You can't, that's absurd to say they only had a good game if they got a sack. I get it. Those are so ingrained as being the important stats. And it is important. A sack ultimately is impactful. But we're not watching the film. Like, I don't know that Myles Garrett, I didn't watch the film after to see if Myles Garrett was impactful in other ways besides getting a sack. But none of us are doing that, and yet we're saying he had a bad game. Maybe he did. I'm not sure.
It's not just the fans and media.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are paid for sacks. That's what they're paid for.
They're not just paid for sacks. They're paid to be impactful.
When you have a big sack number, you have a big salary. That's the way the league operates. The general managers are doing that too. Obviously, those are game-changing plays, but I don't judge it on sacks. I look at everything. I saw...
But come on, Jay, let's be honest. Nobody's watching Myles Garrett every single play. You can't. You're singling in on Myles Garrett every play?
No, but you can go back and watch every single play.
I know that, but who's actually doing that?
Here's an example. Last night, I just judge it on effort.
Yeah.
Last night, there was a play where Russell Wilson rolled to his left, and Myles Garrett had a beat on him with nobody in between him. I think that's the fastest I've ever seen Myles Garrett run. He looked like a 21-year-old fresh out of college who had young legs and just an absolute stallion, and he ends up hitting Russell Wilson as he threw the ball. Russell completed the pass. But that's the effort that you want to see out of your stalwart defensive player.
I'm just saying I think he does that every week, and we just don't notice it when he doesn't have the statistics.
Mike Tomlin was asked, what can you do to slow Myles Garrett? And he goes, nothing more. We're scheming as much as we can scheme to stop him.
I think
we're chipping, we're adding extra bodies, we're doubling, we're doing everything we can. He's just a heck of a player.
I think we just sometimes underestimate just the sheer difficulty it is to do those type things. You know, when you see it, sometimes you don't put it in context. I always say Myles Garrett by far is already the best defensive player to ever put a jersey on for the Browns. And sometimes we don't have anything to compare it to. When you have 10 sacks for 7 straight years, that's the epitome of consistency.
How many players have done that, by the way?
I don't know.
Is he the
I'm
first?
pretty sure they said he was the first one last night.
Yeah, I printed that this morning. I've got it.
And think about this. He won a Defensive Player of the Year award last year, right?
Yes.
How many sacks he had? 14?
Right.
Last year, 14 sacks. Correct.
So before this game, and 2 weeks ago, people would have said this was a down year for Myles Garrett.
Only because of the sacks.
Only because of the sacks. Now, he has potential through the rest of the game, for the rest of the season. He could have more sacks than he had last year. Are we then going to say that season?
Right, I know.
It don't make sense.
Silly. By the way, he's not
the only one in the last 7 years.
Okay. Yeah, because Reggie White did it his first 9 years and did it for 12 of his 14 seasons.
Which is insane. And Myles is on. That's why I say I think he is, with a bullet, in the conversation to be the greatest to ever do it.
Reggie White, in 12 of his first 14 seasons, had less than 11 sacks twice, and he had phenomenal. 8. He had 8 and 8.5 in those other two seasons.
And I know we play more games now,
yeah.
but this is what Myles Garrett is being compared to. Not the greats, not his contemporaries. Not his colleagues on the field now. He's being compared to the greats of all time.
But he's more criticized than any of those guys ever were.
I agree with that.
It's a different time.
And you know what? So is Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge won his second. I was surprised yesterday, by the way, and I know they didn't used to name an MVP. He joins Mickey Mantle as the only 2-time MVP for the Yankees. But when you're in that rare of air, LeBron, for his stretch, was probably the most criticized player in the NBA. The guy was, sometimes when you wear that GOAT hat, you also have a target on your back.
And part of it is the coverage. And it's
the 24-hour news cycle and the debate shows and the endless talk shows.
But you can always go to this and say, go look at the great pass rushers. Bruce Smith at Cornelius Bennett. When you go back and look at Brown with the Philadelphia Eagles and Reggie White. When you look at some of these other guys, Kevin Green got a lot of sacks, but he had Greg Lloyd. He had a bunch of other guys.
TJ Watt.
TJ Watt. He got another guy up here. Myles Garrett is the most doubled and triple team player of all time. If you want to go to the mat, that's like the Jordan rules. Jordan, they was knocking Jordan around, and Jordan couldn't get his money off. You know what they did? They changed the rules. Myles Garrett gets held. Myles Garrett gets triple team and double team more than anybody who's ever played the game at an elite level. And on top of that, He's played for a traditional team that has never had an opposite pass rusher that has garnered any type of pass rush. He's getting all of the slides. He's getting all of the best tackles. Myles Garrett has played on a Browns team who has never had another great defensive lineman next to him.
You know who didn't play last night?
Who's that?
Alex Highsmith.
That's true.
TJ Watt was invisible. Still had another great defensive pass rusher on the line, but that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Has to.
When you've got 3 guys that are Pro Bowl caliber players on that front line, you're gonna get home a lot. And Myles Garrett has really never had that kind of player for any length of time.
Even impact. Think about it in the run game. Even impact linebackers. Like that you have to say, like you think about Terrell Suggs and those guys up front. Terrell Suggs had Ray Lewis and Ed Reed.
Yeah.
So Lodinata in the middle. Like when you mention these big time pass rushers and guys, these guys got great defenses. Myles Garrett is out there with Obo Akaranko.
Yeah.
That's not even the worst name you could have thrown out there.
We up there with Shelby Harris. No disrespect to Shelby Harris. No one's checking for these guys, man. And this dude is still putting up sacks. And guess what? He could end up with 16, 17 sacks and what we were calling a down year.
Does anyone else think that he could end up as the greatest of all time?
I've already said physically.
I think so.
I already said physically he is.
Well, physically, I don't think there's any question.
I almost hate the physically thing because I feel like it takes away from the player. It's like he had an event,
Well, it's like Aaron Judge. Again, Aaron Judge, when you look at him, no one's ever looked like that.
Well, I'm talking
right, but I think it takes something away from how good he is.
I only say physically because I don't want to take anything away from people with production.
Sure.
So, like, people say LeBron ain't that great because he's just bigger than everybody.
Right.
No, you got to.
Well, I always compare that to like Warren Sapp. For the first time I saw that guy without his shirt, I'm like, who is that? That's the most dominant pass rusher in the NFL today? Like, this dude was just as average looking. If you saw him on a beach, you'd be like, that guy should put a shirt on. Yet, his footwork, his speed, his strength, his leverage. Yeah. And Myles is a guy that has the Adonis body and all of the gifts that you need to be great. That's why I think he could end up as the greatest pass rusher of all time.
He's on base. He can get there.
By the way, Myles Garrett, in terms of pass rush win rate, which I find an interesting stat, I don't know if anybody else does, is tied for 3rd in the league with Trey Hendrickson. You know where TJ Watt is?
12.
Tied for 11th.
Very
wow. Nice. Interesting.